Alright guys, what's going on? Spark here. We're back, and I'm going to go through this Dream Puppets deck analysis real quickly. Um, I already have it finished the way I would play it. I'll go through and explain everything, logically why I did things this way. Um, I had already recorded this video, but I did not have enough space on my computer because I had recorded a ton of stuff because I was trying to get a whole bunch of stuff out before the Return to Ravnica stuff came out. And I've already got a bunch of videos recorded of that, and I just needed to find time to finish recording this. So let's start. Hedron Crabs. Hedron Crabs are great. Whenever you play land, they mill 3. It's a great card in a mill deck. Now I'm playing this Hyper Mill. I'm not going anywhere controlly with it. This is just a mill deck. Jace's Phantasm gets +4/+4 as long as your opponent has 10 cards in their graveyard. It's a great card in a mill deck. Thought Scour I'm playing because it has the ability to draw you a card so you don't lose anything when you play it. That's a big problem with a lot of the mill cards in this deck. So we'll go through the mana cost all together and talk about each card's, as the mana cost arises. Unsummon is basically your only removal and is an absolutely necessary card to be played. Visions of Beyond is never bad, but it's not always great. I mean, 1 for 1 is just kind of like, okay, I'll pay mana and filter this card out of my hand. It's cycling. There are a lot of cards that had cycling. When you pay 1 and you draw 3 cards, you're like, am I playing Power 9? So, Visions from Beyond is good. Now that we're into the 1 cost, let's talk about the cards I'm not playing. I'm not playing Grindstone. Simply because, well, let's talk about this for a moment. It doesn't hit lands. It does not hit lands, so keep that in mind. Lands are colorless. So, if you hit 2 lands, it doesn't help. But with the new Return to Ravnica stuff, it's a very strong possibility that this could be viable. At the same time, probably not. If it was more than 3, if it was pay 3, they mill 3, and if it's 2, share the same color, repeat it, would probably be great. Probably be broken. But I feel like it's not quite as powerful as it could be. Oh, excuse me. Prosperity. Each player draws X cards, you tap out, let your opponent draw a whole bunch of cards. It's time reversal. Just really bad. It says I tap out, you draw a bunch of cards, and we pass my turn. So, I'm not playing Prosperity. I'm not playing Tome Scour. Not playing Tome Scour because it doesn't have any card advantage except for the furthering us to our goal of milling them. That's great that we're furthering our goal to mill them, but we lose that card. So in a format that's as specific as this to, there are so many games that you lose just because you drew an extra 2 lands more than your opponent did. In a format like that, I just don't feel like throwing away a card is a good idea. So let's keep going. We'll talk about the 2 cost here. Grind Clock. Very hard to get going. Obviously, if it gets going, it's broken, but it's probably just going to get removed or killed or something before that happens. So, Jace's Erasure actually didn't make the deck list, and I'm very, very upset that I did not make it. But we'll go through the deck, and you'll see why it did not. But it's a very tight deck, and again, this one doesn't get you advantage. It's the same as Tome Scour. It's just a card sitting out there that furthers our goal, but doesn't further our advantage. Mind Sculpt is the exact same. They mill 7, it furthers our goal, and if there were 40 cards in their deck, this would probably be playable. But against 60 or more, there are so many people that play 80 to 100 card decks in this that, yeah. Sapphire Medallion is a good card, but again, it's just a card that sits out on the field and doesn't do anything for us. So in a deck with no removal, you absolutely need a counterspell. Counterspell is probably one of the best counterspells ever printed aside from Force of Will. You should probably play counterspell. Um, Howling Mine. Howling Mine is great. Your opponent gets the card advantage. And if you're playing the Scepter, which I am not, but if you are playing the Scepter, which is over here, or the Icy Manipulator, not the Scepter, the Icy Manipulator. If you're playing the Icy Manipulator, you can actually tap it so that you don't draw cards, or you can tap it so your opponent doesn't draw cards, which is a neat manipulation, but obviously we're playing a mill deck. You obviously want your opponent to draw as many cards as you can, especially since you have the Dreamborn Muses, 3 of them. You know, you want them to have as many cards in their hand as possible because it just mills them that much quicker. And the Royal is another bounce card. You should probably play it because you don't have removal. So we'll keep going 3 costs down here. Aether Adept. Enters the battlefield, return target creature to its owner's hand. Again, a bounce card because you don't have removal. And he's a body. She's a body. It's a body. Everybody. Sands of Delirium I'm playing just as a mana sink. Just a one of, just as a mana sink. That's it. The Swords of Body and Mind are just absolutely amazing. With the new cards, basically Rakdos is the only deck that this doesn't affect out of the new set, which is wonderful because it affects Azorius, because of the blue, it affects Celestia, it affects Golgari, and it affects Izzet. So swords are great. You should play swords all the time. Swords are wonderful. So let's look at the 3 cost up here. Crippling Chill. Tap target creature doesn't tap during its controller's next on tap step, draw a card. This is actually decent and almost playable because it's basically a 2-turn stall and you draw a card. You don't really lose anything for it. But, I mean, I don't see anything worth replacing it for, is the problem with that. Dream Fracture is a counterspell that both players draw a card. I'm not keen on this because of its, oh, I'm going to mill you late game, and you're going to draw a card that you can just replay instantly. I don't like that. I mean, it's great turn 3, but again, I don't like to draw, or let your opponents draw more cards. Sands of Delirium, we mentioned that's just one of, just as a mana sink. You're going to see it a lot because of how quickly you draw through the deck. And it's just one of those things that you can just sink a lot of mana into. You don't want it in your starting hand all the time, but you want to draw into it occasionally, so I feel like 1's the right number in this kind of a format. Stroke of Genius, target player draws X cards. It's very expensive to draw cards at instant speed. Now, it's great because you draw cards at instant speed, but at the same time, it's very expensive, so keep that in mind if you wanted to play that. I just personally don't, just because it's 4 mana to draw 1 card, 5 mana to draw 2, 6 mana to draw 3, 7 mana to draw 4. Which still just is not worth it. We have better things to sink mana into. So we'll continue with the 4 cost up here. Target player draws 2 cards and discards 2 cards. I mean, it's wonderful advantage for you. He's probably going to die. He's just a 2/2, and he costs 4 mana. Is that really what you want to do on turn 4? I would personally rather be milling them, dropping a Font, dropping a Dreamborn Muse. So that's just where I was standing on that. Icy Manipulator, we mentioned it's fun synergy with the Howling Mines, but that's about it. Videlkin Entrancer, you have to tap him. He's got a big old butt, but that's about it. So I didn't like him. That's just, he's a very slow mill, and he just sits there and goes, I've got a big butt, but I don't do anything. So, you know, don't mind me. I can block things for a while, but that's about it. Wheel and Deal. I think I might play one of Wheel and Deal in the deck. Nope, I do not. Do not play the one of Wheel and Deal. Wheel and Deal is a very situational card, and it probably got kicked because it's a very situational card, that each player discards his or her hand and draws 7 cards. If it's not killing your opponent, or it's each opponent discards and draws 7. If it doesn't kill your opponent, they're going to get a shit ton of advantage on you. And I say shit ton in the nicest possible way, but they get a shit ton of advantage on you. Okay, so back down here, looking at clone. It may have clone enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield. So anything that's hexproof, it can target. Keep that in mind because it doesn't target. I shouldn't have used the word target. Um, just it entering the battlefield as a copy of anything is just absolutely great. Um, it's just a good way to kill one of your opponent's creatures, basically. You go, I'll have the same creature you have, and we'll kill each other. 4 mana, blue removal, basically. Or if you can get rid of their creature, it becomes 4 mana, I steal your creature. Body double's good. Oh, well, we're not up there yet. We're not up there. Dreamborn Muse. Dreamborn Muse is absolutely needed. It does a lot of scary things, and it wins you the game. Cloning your Dreamborn Muse also wins you the game. Fauna Mythos. Obviously, it's just a double Howling Mine. Probably really great. Should probably play it. Sleep. Sleepy sleep. Sleep, sleep, sleep. Which is what I need to do. But that's beside the point. Tap all creatures target player controls. Those creatures don't tap during your controller's next untap step. Now, when I play Mill in any real format, it's usually Fog. Turbo Fog. And so this is a Turbo Fog card, and it should be played in the Turbo Fog deck. So, 5 cost. Now, Archive Trap. Archive Trap is wonderful, especially with all the new lands. All the new decks have all the fetchy lands that are really shitty fetchy lands, but they're fetchy lands nonetheless. You can just pay this for free and be like, oh, you mill 13 cards, and my Jace's Phantasms are really big on turn 1. Thank you. So you should probably play it. Mind Control. Just a good way to take control of the creatures that you can't deal with. I'm not playing Body Double, just because the creatures on the field are more of a threat than the creatures in the graveyard, and for some odd reason, it always seems like the better creature is out on the field than in their graveyard for me. So, I'd rather just take their creature and say I'll deal with it this way than to Body Double it up. Obviously, we're very early game focused on playing a lot of spells very quickly, and continuing to play a lot of spells very quickly. So that's why the curve is very sloped downward. I don't play this guy because there aren't a lot of repeat cards in this. So he just kind of hits them and says, oh, exile 4 cards. And he's very expensive, so it's just kind of bleh. Equal number of cards in your hand. Deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. He's good, don't get me wrong, but at the same time he's 5 mana, and you probably don't have very many cards in your hand, especially like you said, we are very sloped downward. This is the slope of the deck. It is going downward. It is a negative slope. Tellman Performance. I was just a random card, and if you're lucky, you hit something good. If you're not, you hit something bad. I don't like luck cards. I'm not a fan of luck cards at all. Traumatized. So let's explain why I took Traumatized out. Turn 5. You've probably milled at least 20 cards out of your opponent's deck. We'll say 20, 30, make things nice and simple. They have 7 cards in their hand, so they have 30 cards left in their library. You pay 5, they mill 15. Great. If you've come off more aggressive than that, and they're down to 20 cards or 25 cards, you mill 12 for 5 mana. Just really, really a high cost. And it's never going to finish them, it's just going to weaken them significantly. So this is a bomb, the Forced Fruition. It's 6 mana, and it basically says you win the game but it also says I'm going to give my opponent the opportunity to win the game. I mean, obviously, if cast right, you're going to win the game, but you give your opponent the opportunity to just refill their hand. Just same thing with wheel and deal. Like, I think there was one game where I wheel and dealed, gave them their hand, and lost the game. And I was just like, really? I had that game. If I would have waited a few turns and just wheel and dealed them, I would have won. But it's just a very situational card. And it's not a situational card. It's a very expensive card, and it lets your opponent draw answers. And I don't like letting your opponent get answers. So this guy costs 7 mana. We'll just get them away from that for fruition. Um, if he starts in your opening hand, they mill 7, which is good. But that's about the only time he's good. He's good against something that has really good instance and sorcery spells, but there's nothing that's really that great. So I just kind of took him out. And this guy gets really big and scary, can't be targeted by anything, and yeah, he's scary, but he costs 7 mana, and you're probably winning the game before he's an 8/16, so, you know, or by the time he's an 8/16, so, you know, that's why you didn't make it in there. So, let me know what you guys think of the deck. I like it a lot personally as far as a mill deck's concerned. I think it's very sturdy and focused on what it's supposed to do. But let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know if you like this format. I already have the Rakdos deck recorded in the way that I usually do it, where I bring everything in and explain why I took it out, which I think I like better. But let me know what you guys think of it. Let me know what you think of the deck. If there's any changes you'd make, if there's anything I completely overlooked, please let me know. And I will see you guys later.